The rejection that came from, say, the government here and the censor board, etc., was much tougher to deal with. The nicest, most heartfelt messages always came from India.
Malala's like, she glows, yeah. You look at her and she walks like she's almost like floating 3 inches above the ground.
What are you making now? I'm making a festival film, which is like poison in my throat and my ears, this sentence. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Do you see Pakistani cinema evolving?
Yes.
Saim Sadiq, hello.
हेलो
So nice to see you. अरे मैं बहुत बढ़िया हूँ सर, आपकी क्या हाल है? कहाँ हैं आप और कितने बज रहे हैं इस वक्त?
12 बजने वाले हैं। मैं लाहौर में हूँ।
मतलब truly a night owl. You're not just saying that in interviews. आप actually में हैं night owl. दिन में काम नहीं होता.
No, I mean I can work a little bit now. I think now that I'm older, I also like एज का तकाजा है कि आप थोड़े से अपने स्केड्यूल्स बेहतर कर लें, लेकिन I usually am able to work at night better because when everybody's asleep and your phone is not ringing, that's like a nice peaceful time to write. Yeah.
मेरे को तो समझ नहीं आते नाइट आउल वाले लोग. मैं तो सुबह 4 बजे उठ के काम करने वाली इंसान हूँ. बट इनफ अबाउट मी, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट जॉयलैंड. 1 साल से पिक्चर दुनिया के चक्कर काट रही है और फाइनली इंडिया में अब एक सस्टेन तरीके से देखने के लिए अवेलेबल है. कभी किसी फेस्टिवल में एक स्क्रीनिंग हो जाती थी, कभी किसी फेस्टिवल में पता चलता था यहाँ शाम को पिक्चर लगी हुई है, पहुंच जाओ. देख ही नहीं पाई मैं. फाइनली अब प्राइम वीडियो पर रेंट के लिए अवेलेबल है बड़े नॉमिनल से प्राइस पे. तो मैंने फटाफट जैसे ही न्यूज पता चली मुझे रेंट करके मैंने देखी और देन वी गॉट इन टच एंड वी डिसाइडेड. आई आस्क्ड यू एंड यू वेरी काइंडली एग्री टू टॉक विद मी.
Happily.
What has been the most outrageous achievement of Joyland? तरह तरह की चीजें हो गई हैं फिल्म में जो आपने नहीं प्लान किया था कि हम ऑस्कर रेस में भी निकल जाएंगे, सनडांस के बाद हम कैन के दरवाजे खोल देंगे पाकिस्तान के लिए, वगैरह वगैरह. What has been the most outrageous achievement that you didn't anticipate Joyland would get?
I made a lot of money in France, which was insane for me. I mean, I hoped, I knew that the film was kind of accessible enough to, be like not one of those indie films that people don't go to watch. I thought that maybe somewhere in the world, but I expected that to happen like say in countries like Pakistan or India. France was the last country I thought, it would do like, I don't know, $1 million or something of that sort, which was an insane number for a film like that, which I was very happy about because it in a way allowed us to shatter the stereotype of like, oh yeah, aapne ek choti indie film jo banayi hai, that's meant for Netflix or that's meant for people to only see it at home. Theaters are meant for Avatar and blah blah blah. So I was happy. It was like, no, theaters are meant for all kinds of films.
France में कितनी लंबी चली फिल्म? What was the theatrical window like?
I think it stayed eventually probably more than 3 months.
Wow.
It was more than 3 months. It stayed in Pakistan for more than 3 months also. It released in very few theaters in Pakistan and of course limited only in Karachi and Islamabad. But wherever it released, it stayed in theaters for more than 3 months for sure.
I mean, and that is saying something because at one point picture release भी नहीं होने वाली थी पाकिस्तान में, बैन लग गया था, फिर उसके खिलाफ लड़ाई करी. सनडांस के स्क्रीन राइटिंग लैब से रिजेक्ट हुई फिल्म 3 बार, राइट? इसकी स्क्रिप्ट 3 बार रिजेक्ट होने के बाद सनडांस में चल भी गई पिक्चर, कैन भी पहुंच गई, ऑस्कर भी पहुंच गई. बट काफी रिजेक्शन फेस करने के बाद जॉयलैंड काइंड ऑफ स्टार्टेड and then it's been non-stop and then it's been rolling like a boulder down a hill. How do you deal with rejection like that, Saim? As a first-time filmmaker, big first debut film, feature film, मुझे अभी कल टिफ ने रिजेक्ट किया है मीडिया इंक्लूजन इनिशिएटिव में, कह रहे सॉरी हम नहीं बुला पाएंगे आपको. मेरा दिल काफी टूटा हुआ है. कैसे डील करते हो रिजेक्शन से?
Yeah, if I'm honest, the festival rejections or like, when the project was in development, we applied for Sundance, of course, we got rejected 3 times. We got rejected there's a long list, a lot of European funds and, it's a really long list. And at that time, I think I was so, I guess you're so naive when you're making your first film, you don't really expect much from the world because you're like, why would anybody... I'm realistic like that. I'm like, why would anybody want me to make this film in the first place? What the fuck do they know about me? Why do they care? I know they don't. It's fine. Whichever way we can make the film, we'll make it that way. So I think whatever you get 100 rejections, you get the one win, you latch on to that with dear life and you be like, yeah, this is the truth and the rest is just bullshit. Okay, this is the good lab. They have good taste, So you... Yeah, you move on and then, when you get into Sundance with your film, you're like, they have great taste now. So I didn't take it seriously. The rejection in terms of once the film was made, I think that until then, I never even thought about what the film is supposed to do.
No.
Because it was not supposed to do anything, I was supposed to make a film that I could see and like. myself. That was for me the most important thing. And then once it was out, then I was like, no, I think I like this film, so I want everybody to like it. So then I think the rejection that came from, say, the government here, and the censor board, etc., was much tougher to deal with than the other rejections, which felt like, oh, gosh, wo hota to acha hota, because this is, you miss that kind of rejection then, because this one is truly heartbreaking, because you're like, I have a film, you just need to put it in a theater, that's it, and you don't have to come watch it, just let me put it in a theater and let people decide if they want to see it or not. Yeah.
वही है ना, फिल्म में भी वही थीम है सारी, अगर आपके घर वाले आपको रिजेक्ट कर दें तो फिर that breaks you in a way that nothing else does.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be in, because you're like, before that we were sort of the little heroes, the unsung. We should celebrate these people. They went to Cannes. This was the first time. Blah blah blah, all of that stuff. So we're like, okay, even that was quite surprising, because I knew at some point when they're going to find out what the film is about, they're not going to be that gung ho about. But for it to turn really, completely the opposite way was not something that we expected.
Yeah.
But yeah.
इंडिया में लोगों ने अब देखनी शुरू कर दिया, क्योंकि प्राइम वीडियो पर आ गई, अवेलेबल है देखने के लिए. कोई रिस्पॉन्सेज आपको आ रहे हैं अभी इंडिया से येट? क्योंकि इंडिया का कनेक्शन भी आपकी फिल्म की प्रोड्यूसर इंडियन अमेरिकन है.
Yeah, now Indian American, but for the longest time while we were making the film, she was Indian. No, I think every time the film streamed in India, even at the festivals, I think it streamed at Dharamshala, it streamed in Kolkata.
And it also screamed at Kashish in Bombay.
But the nicest, most heartfelt messages always came from India. That's the truth. And I think somehow the funny thing is we've had quite a bit of interaction with Indian journalists as well. I think at Cannes, because there were no Pakistani journalists at Cannes, they'd be there. There were a lot of Indian journalists. And they were all, and there was no, if I remember correctly, apart from Shaunak's film, which was, again, documentary, so unfortunately don't get that kind of attention. This was the film that I think all the Indian journalists were looking at as their film as well, So it was really nice that there was like a level of support from India that was quite uninhibited, because I didn't think that it would be so, because one wonders, because of the politics, that, they won't want to cover it, they would have issues with their, editors, etc. But it was really lovely, and the people have been extremely responsive. Like, even I think Nikhil Advani had a screening a couple of days ago, and Sucharita Tyagi was there, and Ratna Pathak Shah was there, and one has grown up watching them, and been such big admirers of their work, and for them to see it, I was like, this is really, really special and nice. Yeah.
इंडिया में स्क्रीनिंग कराने के लिए आप खुद तो कभी जा नहीं पाओगे, मुझे नहीं लगता. वो हमारे
No, we dialed in for a Q&A, we zoomed in, but no, we couldn't. No, Apurva went and she did like a quiet screening in Hyderabad, which was like a private screening. But no, apart from that, we tried to release it. But it didn't work.
ये फिल्म देखने के बाद a lot of people are also going back to your student project Darling, which is available to watch on YouTube. I also watched it. It's like 16.5 minutes long, so it's an easy breezy watch, and it's clearly the origin story of Joyland. It kind of even reads like Biba's origin story before she became Biba, the stage performer, where she came from. It reads like that. When did Darling turn into Joyland for you?
It was the other way around, actually. I had Joyland before, and I had the script before. And I was still in school. I was in my third year, and I had to make a thesis film. So, and me and Apurva, we were both very sure that we wanted to make Joyland as a film. It wasn't like initially it started out as a script that you're writing in a class, so it's a spec script, you write it, and hopefully that'll help you get other gigs. Usually that's the pattern, but with us, I think we really wanted to make this film. So then I thought it was just smart to make a thesis film that could at least help me show that, this is the world that the film is talking about, because it's such an obscure thing for somebody sitting in any other part of the world to be like, okay, they're theaters, but they're soft porn, but not, but the women are fully clothed, but what's the sexual angle here? What's, it's hard to explain what the specificity of that world is like. So we thought of making a film, and then it was also like, to start a casting search for Biba's character was going to be always an uphill task. So like, might as well start using this short film and see if we find somebody that we want to work with, that we want to invest in, because there are no actors there are no trans actors. Now there are, but at that time there weren't. And so we had to find somebody who was interested and who we were interested in, to be like, okay, for 3 years we're gonna train each other. You train us about where you come from. We train you about whatever the technicality of acting and cinema is like, and see if we can make it work for, because it's one of the lead parts. And I don't think if the film really works, in big part because of all the actors, but particularly because she's such a other thing to everybody else, that I think then eventually it was necessary for us to find Alina to be able to actually make this film. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have made it.
She's so good. She's so good. And you can't tell that she's not a trained actor. You can't tell that she's not a professional actor. And you can't tell that she's never really done this before except with you in your short film and then in the feature. Every beat, every movement of every eyebrow, every twitch of her face is so on point. And that's really what gets you. You're initially wondering, like, why is she so abrasive? And then gradually she shows you why she's so abrasive, why she needs to be abrasive to be able to live around men constantly, all the time. I really admired the empathy the film has for every character. You meet these characters and you initially don't really like any of them, and then you're shown that no, whether it is the sister-in-law, whether it is the father, even the nosy neighbor, Haider himself, Alina's character Biba, specifically the father character, right? He is disabled, he's old, he cannot really walk, and in the scene where he's alone at home with the neighbor auntie at nighttime, everybody has gone to Joyland, and he pees himself, you realize the house is not wheelchair accommodating. He has been on this wheelchair for years and years, and yet nobody has thought of putting a ramp into his bathroom in 1 second. How do you generate that kind of empathy for all the characters, even the ones you're not supposed to like?
For this character, it was particularly hard, I think, I have to say, because I think for the longest time, he was a little bit of a caricature. I think I always put him in a wheelchair because I felt like if he's walking around, I'll never be able to myself have any empathy for him. So I need to give him something that gets to what I was more interested in talking about, instead of just a patriarch who's just a patriarch. I was more interested in sort of seeing how at some point in time, he's not a hypocrite, which is something that I liked about him. That I really liked the fact that his sort of shot at life and his shot at desire of having something nicer in his life, having a partner, he doesn't allow himself either, So it's heartbreaking. And in that moment, perhaps he's the closest to questioning what everybody else in the house is already questioning from time to time. And that's something I think that really enabled me to have empathy for him, because before that, it is hard to have empathy when you talk about this way of life, which is generationally sort of, inherited. Patriarchy is something that you learn from your parents. You see them doing these things and then you learn from them. And so it's hard to have empathy sometimes, because you're like, your generation is different and our generation is different, and now we're the new age people. We have our phones and we have this whole life that we want to live, and you just don't get it. No. But I think if you try to look deeper than that, you realize that whenever our parents, for example, try to stop us from something and we say, actually, we can do whatever we want, it's so hurtful to them, because what they're realizing is that they could too do whatever they wanted, but they didn't, and that the whole life that they didn't live according to what they wanted sort of flashes in front of them. And at that moment in time, of course, if you just go ahead and do what you want, their life and their sacrifices are useless and they're meaningless. And they need them to mean something on some level, I think, which is why perhaps so many people out of their very good nature and heart also perpetuate patriarchy, because they actually think this is the right way to be and this is the only way to be. We never had the out that perhaps our generation has, which is perhaps something that allowed me to have empathy for him. And for of course, the neighborhood auntie.
That's why when Haider does these things, they all come across as surprising, whether he was talking respectfully to his wife, he's talking respectfully to Biba, and then it makes you question your own ingrained sexism and patriarchy. This is the bare minimum. A man is talking respectfully to a woman, whether the woman is a dancer or whether the woman is a wife. This is the bare minimum. Why does it feel shocking or surprising to see a man washing the dishes or like tie his wife's hair while she's washing the dishes? Haider is such an incredible character, a lead in a mainstream kind of setting who doesn't want to be alpha. He has no desire to be the alpha dog. He doesn't want to be a leader. He wants to follow. He wants instructions. Specifically in one scene where Biba gets really mad at him and she says, "Ki yahan se nikal ja, kamre se bahar nikal ja." And he says, "No, let me just sit. I want to listen to what you have to. I want to know why you're angry." Talk to me about creating this character, Haider, जो है तो lead आपकी film का, but वो ना alpha है, ना leader है, और but वो बेचारा भी नहीं है. Like, he's not pathetic.
I think the fact that he doesn't come across as pathetic is in large part to Ali Junejo, to be frank, because I think he really took it from, all of these things were on paper, but there was something, because he's not a guy who stays a lot. And so on paper is just a guy who seems like a pushover, who seems confused, and who has a good nature, but at the same time is allowing for all the things to happen to his wife, that are happening to his wife. He tries a little bit, but doesn't try hard enough. So on paper, he was not very likable at all, actually, and he somehow sort of empathized with him enough, and it took him a while as well, and it took me a while as well, because we used to get annoyed with him, because we're like, all these girls around you, they're so much more interesting, they're so much more, they're doers, and and in varied shades of having a certain kind of passion, like Nucchi, despite the fact that she's a housewife, she still has...
She's so great. What a beautiful character Nucchi is.
Yeah, she's got some weird passion, and that was, something that Haider was always lacking in, and that was always... He was the hardest character to crack, acting-wise and writing-wise as well, I think, because of the fact that it was hard to put him in a spot where you would judge him a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
Without losing empathy for him, it was very important for me to, despite his good nature, put him on the stand a little bit towards the end and be like, you are a little bit of a coward as well. And you have, despite the fact that you are still on the margins of society because of perhaps your sexuality or because of your, lack of conventional masculinity, but you're still a man.
Yeah.
You walk around in society and you walk around in your house and you're a man. And so there is that inherent privilege and benefit that you do still get and benefit from.
Yeah, if he decides he wants to go out in the middle of the night, he can go out in the middle of the night, and like his wife can't.
He can have an affair.
Yeah.
He can have an affair, and he can have an affair with the trans girl.
If he wants.
None of these women can even properly spy on a neighborhood boy, but
without getting caught. Yeah. Sarwat Gilani is as talented as she is pretty. Her voice, her mannerisms, just the way she becomes Nucchi. I also really loved her in Chudels, and that is the only other work I've seen of hers, unfortunately. She was incredible. And then again, she's one of those characters who starts out like as a typical bhabhi, I'm keeping an eye on you, I'm seeing what you're up to. And until you realize that like, she's just as much a victim as any of these people are. When did, so you put together this great cast, great performers, some non-actors, you work together, you workshopped. When did people like Malala and like Riz Ahmed get associated with the project, with Joyland?
Much later, after the premiere.
After
when
Cannes.
We premiered, after Cannes, yes. Because the film created quite some noise at Cannes, so everybody who at least was associated with, the Pakistani industry or Pakistan in the diaspora as well, like Riz Ahmed or Malala, they all sort of heard about it, and they, we sent links across, and then, they liked the film, and then they were like, oh, we want to help support it, because of course, as much as Sarwat is a huge star in Pakistan, and even Sania Said is a big star in Pakistan, and the leads are all new. They're not really recognizable faces so much outside of Pakistan.
Sure.
So, of course, Malala and Riz, of course, having their might behind the film gave it that kind of extra visibility just to reach out to a wider audience. It considerably did help a lot, in many, many places. They really sort of put their best foot forward.
Yeah. I found myself...
the cutest thing in the world also, just by the way.
I mean, I saw her once at... I happened to be in Los Angeles during the Oscars last year because my friend Guneet Munga was nominated and she won. And then I snuck into the Vanity Fair party. And then there she was, Malala. Right. Yeah, and Malala's like, she glows, yeah. You look at her and she walks like she's almost like floating 3 inches above the ground. And she walks like this, and she was wearing the... Oh my God. I was like so in awe. I didn't find the daring to be like, hi Malala.
But in person she's like the sweetest also, like she's just like a normal 25-year-old girl, and you can have the most normal conversation with her, and actually I feel like she prefers that, rather than people sort of define her. And it's just like really nice to be like, you're so down to earth and chill.
She seems really down to earth and chill. At least, when she does these interviews, especially when she appears with her husband, she's damn funny. Finally, Joyland का अभी world tour हो गया है finish या अभी भी बाकी है, कुछ घुमा रहे हैं अभी भी film को इधर उधर?
Yeah, also I'm the worst person to ask this question these days because I don't know. I know that it's going to release in South Korea and Germany. I think it's in October and November.
Yeah.
So there's still some theatrical releases left. I know it's going to release in Taiwan and a bunch of perhaps other countries that I'm not aware of. So it's in a mix of like some places it's on VOD, some places on, proper streamers, and some in theatrical left. But it's still, indie films have a long, weird life. if they work out.
Again, coming back to Cannes, this year again there was a beautiful Pakistani film, In Flames, which I had the good fortune of watching. Zarar Khan's film. Do you think Joyland kind of opened a door for a new form of Pakistani cinema that is going to speak to a larger audience now? In Flames was beautiful, and I saw it at Directors Fortnight.
I haven't seen it, even though he's my friend.
Oh, so good.
Honestly, I don't know if that's something that we should credit to Joyland, honestly speaking, because I know that he made the film. When I was editing the film, he was shooting it. And when I was editing my film, he was shooting it, right? So he was going to get in even if Joyland didn't get in. That's my opinion, I think. And if his film wasn't, something that the people liked, it wouldn't have gotten it despite Joyland as well. So I feel like it's really his credit. Yeah, but the timing of it all is really nice and interesting because it's
they're back to back, like another 1 year and then another year, there's another one.
That's nice.
Where do you see Pakistani cinema right now? Do you see a change in general, even if we want to attribute it to the team of Joyland? But do you see Pakistani cinema evolving?
Yes. Slowly and in a very small way. Because people like us are very few and far in between, I have to say, who are interested, not to a judgment on more mainstream sort of cinema.
Yeah.
But there is not that level of interest in making the kind of film that Joyland is and perhaps In Flames is. There are a few, but at the same time, I think there are many more now coming up having seen these films. And what I fear a little bit is the fact that they're more interested in the accolades that these films were able to get rather than the films themselves. So they're trying to replicate the journey of the films once the films were made rather than the films themselves.
That's a trap.
So they're like, oh, what are you making now? I'm making a festival film, which is like poison in my throat and my ears, this sentence. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I hope that doesn't happen, that people just look at it as a sign of, you can make anything. And if it resonates, and if it's good, it will resonate. With some people, somewhere it will resonate. It's not like Joyland has been seen by everybody who's seen Avatar. Of course not, right? But some people somewhere have seen Joyland to make it something, give it some kind of life of its own. And that's good enough, The same people may not watch In Flames, but that's a different set of people that will watch it, And it will find a life of its own. And so I hope that that's perhaps the lesson rather than, I don't know, just, taking a certain kind of, shot or telling a story in a certain kind of way because they think that that's now a template for what gets into Cannes or whatever.
Yeah. Khair, it's very exciting. It's really something to see two big stages for two big Pakistani films at international festivals like Cannes, Sundance and other places. And I hope you continue to make more films. Are you going to continue to make movies in Pakistan now? Or are you thinking of perhaps making more movies in America? What's the plan?
Both. I think both.
Very good.
I can never not make films in Pakistan. I think what I write will always either have, at the very least, have some connection to Pakistan because I've grown up here. So I don't know if I can think of a story that is completely to a white girl and a white boy.
Set in Manhattan. Yeah.
The one I'm writing is set in Manhattan, but it's still with two. I've lived there also. And it's it still has a big Pakistani connection and it's half set in Pakistan. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. But I think storytelling is becoming so much more interesting now that it doesn't really quite matter. At this point in time, all the material that I get is usually either has a Pakistan angle or a queer angle. And I can do more than that. If you're sending me something, then you can send me other stuff as well. But let's see what happens with that.
अब देखिए ना हमारी मुलाकात अब इंडिया में होगी ना कभी पाकिस्तान में होगी. मैनहट्टन आएंगे जब फिल्म शूट करने के लिए तो बताइए. If I'm around this side of the world, I will definitely see you then.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Thank you for talking to me, Saim. Congratulations on the movie and good luck for everything that you're working on next.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely talking to you.
Bye.
Ciao.